Everybody, thanks for watching. Now, perfect video to really get into when following up on the Moors and following up on the theft of Northern Africa and understanding how they're trying to steal it and change its history and change the demographic or change the people who are really indigenous and native to Northern Africa to Europeans. You got to understand how, the conquest of Europeans, the conquest of Aryans, whatever you want to call them, how they can't run away from the documentation of that. When you have something as large as a war or, the destruction of a civilization that had sophisticated people that left behind information, you can't cover that up forever. And the thing is, if every single person that's European is not in on it, if every single person is not with the ruling elite, with the powers that be, so to speak, then of course they'll do their own research, because a lot of people just want to know the truth. And that's the question I get from a lot of people that's white, that watch my channel, that understand what I'm trying to do. They want to know the truth. There's a lot of people who understand that history is not what they've been told. They've been lied to about real European history, and a lot of people just want to understand where they come from and what's going on. Now, one of the questions that I got, somebody actually asked me to do this topic, but a lot of people have a misconception about the tribes in the Bible, the civilizations in the Bible that the Israelites basically go out and conquer. And I touched on this a little bit in the video on the Hebrew Israelites, talking about who these people really were and what really happened. So you got to understand that these nations that the Bible is talking about, where you have the Israelites coming in and conquering, these nations were African nations. These were African people that had their lands taken away. Now, the Bible covers it up with using, a name like Shemitic. And when you start doing your research, you'll see a lot of researchers have taken that name. One of the things you have to understand in doing research is a lot of researchers, some of them are religious. And to me, when you're doing research and people are using names and terms like Hamites and Ham and Shemitic and relating their research to people who they believe existed in the Bible, you can't really trust that research. You really got to pay attention and dig deeper into what they're saying, because one, we can't find any of these nations that they're talking about in the Bible. We can't find these people. So the only people we can find that we can even find any kind of story that's similar to what we read in the Bible is African people. Not to mention the fact that this stuff was going on in Africa. When you go and you start reading the Bible, when it's even going back to the Garden of Eden in Genesis, Ethiopia, it's the first name that you hear. What Ethiopia is Greek, meaning burnt face. So we know this stuff is taking place in Africa. We know about how they split up Ham and his brothers, as far as Ham, Shem, Japheth, and how they're supposed to represent different races of people. Ham being the line of African people, and you have Shemitic people and the Israelites saying that we black people who was enslaved and sent to America are part of the Shemitic race, which of course that's bogus. So I'm going to give you a little bit more understanding on that in a second. But it's a reason why they point to the Jews being a chosen people, and why these Hebrew Israelites believe that we are the chosen people, or what have you. And it's a little bit more understanding that they need to get before they can reach the truth about that. But they don't want to look in the right place, because then when you look in the right places, it kills that whole doctrine, which I have proved. So this is what you need to understand. These races, these groups, these civilizations that the Bible is talking about were African people. And when you understand the MO of the powers that be and how they have taken over civilizations throughout history, it's been the same thing. They come in wanting war, wanting to basically take over, but understanding that, that's maybe not the smartest move. They only resort to war if they have to. The first thing they go in and try to do is establish peace. And once they have peace, then they take over from within, like a cancer, like a virus. And then they eventually take over. What you got to understand, and because a lot of people don't read the Bible is breaking this down and telling you this in Deuteronomy and throughout the Bible. And when you start reading about these nations that have been taken over, it's the same thing. and you can see it clear as day in the Bible, and you can't relate it to any other people but African people. Now, in case you don't understand my claim about the Bible, what I speak to as far as the Bible is that the Bible is not, of course, the inspired word of God. It's bullshit. The Bible was written by men to control civilizations, to control people. But not just that, hidden within the Bible is basically the secret society's understanding about, the universe and how we got here, what have you. And when you can break down the codes in the Bible, it basically gives you that. So when you understand that the Masons throughout the world and every single Masonic lodge have a Bible, a Torah, and a Quran on the altar, this gives you the understanding that it's something more to the books than just what we've been told by our preachers. Preachers go to seminary school, they go to primary school, they go to schools to learn how to teach the Bible a specific way. Now, we're talking about a book. Anybody that's been in a book club or has read a book, understand you read a book from start to finish. When you go to church, the pastor doesn't start with Genesis and end in Revelation. He picks out a sermon at different pieces of the book and creates a sermon to preach to you a certain way about the book. If you went through the Bible from start to finish, by the end of Revelations, there wouldn't be no more Christians, because then you would have the truth, which is why they don't do that. So something you need to understand. One, the book is giving you, the justification of the theft of African land, genocide, the excuse and reason why so many African people have been destroyed and civilizations have been wiped out. The book has that excuse in there, and it's trying to justify it by saying that God ordained Europeans, white people, to basically take over and take the lands from African people. And if you are a Christian and you actually believe the Bible and believe in the book, when you read it and you read certain things in the book that just don't seem like something a Christian should do, let alone God himself should allow, then you should be suspect about it. Why would God create these people and create these children, since Christians believe that God created our souls and our spirit and everything like that? Why would he create these children just to be destroyed by his other creation? It just doesn't make sense for God to tell people to go into a territory or to a country with people that have babies and tell you to kill the babies, to kill everything that breathes. And you just supposedly put the soul into that baby a couple days ago. Why would you do that just to have it killed, burnt alive, destroyed by people? So it don't make sense. So when you read stuff like that, you can read between the lines if you're a conscious person to understand it's talking about the conquering. It's talking about the colonizing and the taking of African lands by Europeans. So we go to Deuteronomy 7:1. It says, "When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land, whether thou goest to possess it, and have cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show them any mercy." So again, this is God supposedly talk about love, mercy, forgiveness. What is it that these people have done? Little children have done nothing to deserve to be utterly destroyed for what? So you got to understand, and the Bible is talking about this, and you have to ask yourself as a Christian person, how can you accept that as being something that's just and reasonable from a God that created the universe? That he created the universe and all this land and, 6 days, rested on the 7th, and he wanted to give his people some land. Why not give them an entire planet that they can have to themselves instead of killing a bunch of people and taking the land that's rightfully theirs? So you got to think about that kind of stuff. You got to really ask yourself critical questions when it comes to Christianity and understand what's taking place. What I'm trying to explain to you is this is them trying to show that this is Europeans taking land from African people. Plain and simple. This is what it's really talking about. This is what's hidden in between the lines. And when you go and read more into a lot of these things, you can see where the cover-up is and where it's basically showing you exactly what the Europeans have been doing throughout history. Now, as myself and others have explained how Europeans would come into African countries, proclaiming peace, and wanting to basically spread Christianity and spread Judaism or what have you, coming in the name of peace to really get into these civilizations and understand what was going on, how things work, before later they was taken over and conquered by the Europeans. It's the same MO. We have been seeing it throughout history. So when you read in the Bible, Deuteronomy 20, 10 through 17, it's basically breaking down exactly that process and what was going on. So it's saying, when thou cometh near unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. So when you come in to fight a city, proclaim peace. If it make thee answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee. Tributaries is basically, they're paying tribute to the conquerors, paying tribute to the white people or to the Israelites in this case. They're paying tribute, and tribute is, when you pay tribute, you pay money. It's like paying taxes. So basically go in there, proclaiming peace, and if they say, cool, they want to be peace, okay, cool, be peaceful with them, but then tax their ass. So that's basically what it's saying. Later on, say, hey, we got to tax you for this land or tax you for the things that you have. So you got to understand what's being said here in the Bible. And so many people just read the Bible and they get so caught up in everything and don't pay attention to what it's saying. It's saying, go into this nation with people, proclaim peace. If they be peaceful, then cool. But then basically just make them your servants, make them basically pay you taxes for existing on land that was already theirs. So it goes on to say, if it make the answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. Okay, why would they serve you? You're supposed to be peaceful, right? Why are they serving you? So think about that. And if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. Understand what that means? And when the Lord thy God have delivered it unto thy hand, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of a sword. So if God is delivering this land unto them, why do they have to go and kill? It's God. This is how I said to you when I explained that God is the government system. God is this corrupt government. God is the powers that be. So once the government or the powers that be give the people this land, go in there and kill everybody. When they say so, hey, go in there and kill them. Go in there and smoke everybody, kill everybody. So that's basically what it's talking about. So you understand what's taking place. You're going into lands that's already inhabited by people, and then going in and conquering and taking it from the people. If the people are, I guess, primitive or don't have a army or what have you, so go in there. In most cases, they went in there and they was able to befriend them, but then, take riches from them. But in this case, if they fight back, it's saying, kill them and take the land. It's telling you straight up, it's a jacking. They jacking these people, and God is backing the whole thing. So people want to go on praise and say this God is good and God is great. What's going on here? This is robbery, murder that we're talking about, genocide of these people and taking their land. So this is the same thing. The only thing we can find in history comparable to this is what happened to African people. So if you want to believe that the Bible is true and real or what have you, how can you read that and still follow it? Now it goes on to say, and when the Lord thy God hath delivered it unto thy hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of a sword. But the woman and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoils thereof, thou shalt take unto thyself. And thou shalt eat the spoils of thy enemy. The spoil of thy enemy. Think about that. Again, this is basically what took place. So, this day and age, it takes a weird, crazy person to go break into somebody's house, kill them, and then just live in their house and eat their food as if it was yours, as if you lived there for years. So this is what's taking place. We're going to go in there, kill these people, take everything, eat their food, everything. Think about how crazy that sounds. It's sick. You got to understand. The only thing, again, that is comparable to this is what happened to African people. Now it goes on to say, thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not of the cities of those nations, but of the cities of these people. These people. What people is talking about? Which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance. Thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth, but thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. These people. So again, it's already establishing. Of course, we know it's different people from the Hebrew Israelites, from the Israelites. So the only people you can compare this to in history, proven history, is what happened to African people, as I keep saying. But you gotta understand what's taking place. Again, you have the land of African people being taken over by Aryans, by Europeans, whatever you want to call them, white people, and them establishing these nations as if it was theirs. Now, this is biblical stuff, and again, we can't go back and prove none of this stuff, but we can prove that this happened to African people. We can also prove that the cover-up was there, that destroyed the cities that was there before they conquered to hide the accomplishments of African people. So now, if you take away the Bible, you take away religion and what people follow as far as their, morality, then all we have is, morality, the normal thing that we can just say, we don't want done to us, so we won't do it unto other people. Kill, steal, rob, rape, what have you, renege on a contract. We won't do none of that stuff. That would be basically the law of the land, law of the people, strictly without religion. This is what everybody basically wants. You don't want nobody killing you. You don't want nobody taking that from you. You don't want nobody to enter into a contract with you, then jump out of the contract. You don't want nobody raping you or what have you. So this would be just normal, clean slate law. Morals, we can say. Now, Israel. And you have the Jews, you have the Hebrew Israelites, what have you, who are so proud of Israel. And the thing is, one, if you want to go by scripture, you can't prove the legitimacy of the Jews in Israel. You just can't. You got this whole war between Palestinians and Jews, what have you, and it's just so much craziness going on over Jerusalem when the Bible is telling them clearly that the land does not belong to them, never has belonged to them. So how can you be so proud of a land that's not yours, that you basically took, murdered, to have, and all in the name, all by a God that says he gave it to you as an inheritance? How can you give an inheritance to people, a land that never belonged to their people, that never belonged to them? So the thing is, with Jerusalem, it never belonged to Jews, of course. It was already inhabited by the Jebusites, which would be another African civilization. And King David basically came in there and took it. So you can't even establish Israel as being Jewish morally, forgetting the Bible and forgetting the fact that we can't prove that this God exists. If you look at it in a moral sense, morally, it never belonged to you. We can't prove that God existed, but we can prove that African people ruled the territory long before you did. As I said before, the ancient Egyptians had this land, and it was a part of their empire. When you look at ancient Egyptian territory, when you look at the empire they had, Israel was part of their empire. And I went through all this in the DVD against the Hebrew Israelites when I basically explained all this, how the Jews, who they saying are black, were not black Hebrews. The fact that the land already belonged to African people prior to that tells you that it had to be African people there before any of these Hebrews stepped foot in there. The Bible was telling you the same thing. Now, one of the reasons why it says in the Bible that King David or whoever said kill everybody is so they can say, well, they killed everybody, so it wasn't no black people there. So the people who was in this land now, from at this time, basically goes back to the time when the land was taken, and all these people are Shemitic people. None of them are African, and that's bullshit, because as I said, we can't prove none of this stuff happened. What we can prove is that the land belonged to African people, and that's who were there and still is there to this day. So now it's telling you in 2 Samuel 5:6-12 exactly this, when King David came in and basically took the land from the Jebusites. Now it says, and the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land. Again, and the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, which it wasn't called Jerusalem, and it wasn't called the Jebusites. So you got to think about who was the people before them. the inhabitants of the land, who clearly wasn't the Hebrews, which spake unto David, saying, Except thou take away the blind and the lame, thou shalt not come hither, thinking, David cannot come in hither. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, the same is the city of David. And David said on that day, Whosoever getteth up to the gutter and smiteth the Jebusites and the lame and the blind, kill the Jebusites, kill the lame and the blind people that are hated of David's soul. I mean, come on. He shall be chief and captain. Wherefore they said, The blind and the lame shall not come into the house. So David dwelt in the fort and called it the city of David. And David built round about from Millo and Ember. And David went on and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. And Hiram king of Tyre sent messages to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters, and masons, and they built David an house. And David perceived that the Lord had established him king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for his people Israel's sake. So if you're a Hebrew or Jew or what have you, and you're reading that, you're thinking, okay, well, bam, God said it was cool, so it was all good. That God said, go ahead and take the land from these people, kill these people, kill the blind and the lame. The people can't absolutely not defend themselves. Kill them, take the land. It's all good because God said so. So again, this is how you establish, a reason. How to try to justify what happened to the indigenous people throughout the world by looking into the Bible and saying, well, God said it was cool for y'all to absolutely kill these people. So that's what we did. And we took the land. So then when you couple that with Romans, and it basically saying that you're supposed to follow the powers that be because God ordained them to be in power. It's the same shit. It's the same thing. It's somebody saying that God said. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? And here we are to this day, land conquered. You have these people ruling, saying that God put them in charge. I mean, anybody can profess anything. If you have the army, the power, the money to back it up, then you can basically do anything. These people basically did that. They wrote down their plan. They put a plan into play and played on the goodness of the indigenous people who just was human and had empathy and was looking to help. And they played on that and they infiltrated and they took the lands away from these people. And that's basically what happened. Anybody who tried to put up a fight and fought for, their land was killed. It's the same thing, keep going on and on. It's been going on for centuries. And people fail to understand and to recognize what has taken place. We call it colonization. It's genocide. Whatever you want to call it, it's wrong. Morally, period, it's wrong. And what kind of God would allow it? As I said before. So you got to think about that, what you accepting from this Christian religion and what you think God is all about. You read the book and it basically goes against what most people feel is morally right. It's wrong. And God himself could have did something better. Tell the people to go to another place and give the land to them if it belonged to them. What was it about these people that you would just kill them and take the land? So you got to think about that. And a lot of people are going to say, yeah, well, they were worshiping false idols and what have you and this and that. So God just wanted to kill them and get them out the way. And this is where it goes into that God is a jealous God and vengeance. This is how it tries to justify that. Well, the Bible says God is jealous, so maybe he was just mad and just say, he wanted to kill him. And that's how they try to justify it. But it's all bogus, it's all bullshit, because you can't prove to me that this God ever existed. So then the thing is, a lot of people read those verses and they read the Bible, and a lot of y'all are thinking this is like super ancient stuff that happened thousands of years ago. When it's not. We're talking about recent history. We're talking about AD time, where this stuff is taking place, where you have the Aryans, the Europeans going in and conquering and taking lands from African people. The problem is, you're not realizing that the King James Version was written 1604 to 1611. Plain and simple. This is after slavery had already taken place, after all these African kingdoms had fell, after the Renaissance, and after, of course, the Dark Ages. And think about it. You don't have nothing to compare the King James Version to as far as ancient manuscripts. Now we can go to the codices, which already proved that the codex is different from the King James Version. Already proved that Deuteronomy 28 does not say the same in the codexes as it do in the King James Version. And the oldest example of Deuteronomy that we have, you find in Deuteronomy 28:68. It says nothing about going back to Egypt with ships. It's talking about children. So again, we can see that, the Bible was different and it was changed and rewritten, which is why it's called the King James Version, to fit what was taking place during that time and to justify the genocide of African people and them taking the lands from African people. And that book was created and given to us in slavery, not handed to us, literally, but they told us about the Bible. So when you're reading that, like I said, I don't understand how no black person can be a Christian. I just don't. You stupid. I can't fathom it. Like, come on, snap out of it. Just the simple fact we was given the book during slavery should tell you something. We in slavery, they teaching us about this guy that's talking about saving us and everything like that, and it's not happening. It doesn't happen. Hundreds of years still, praying on our knees, getting hung, beaten, burnt alive. Meanwhile, you have the slave master and them praying on the church. Everything good happened for them. So you tell me, where's the justice in that? Where's God in this whole situation? So that should give you the understanding, one, that this is not a book written by God. This is a book written by European people to control African people and to justify the genocide of their ancestors. Plain and simple. All the stuff that's hidden in the book, and people who follow me, you guys understand how much I glorify the Bible, how much I uplift the Bible as far as the hidden code in the book. If you read the book and you're trying to say everything about it is real and true and Jesus is real and everything like that, you're crazy. Something wrong with you. If you believe that a 500-year-old man spent 100 years building an ark and put two of every animal on it, something is wrong with you mentally. If you believe that a grown man can survive 3 days inside of a big fish, something is crazy. Think about what you're saying and be rational. And understand that this is all a parable. There is not going to be a beast that's going to appear in the sky with 7 heads and 7 crowns and 7 horns. It's talking about something else clearly. And Jesus tells you in Matthew, it's a parable. The book is a parable. So, come on. You can't get a woman from a man's rib. It's not possible. Eve means before. So, obviously trying to tell you she came before man. It's a parable. It's all a parable. It's all trying to tell you something. So, what you have to understand is how to separate the book. And this took me over 10 years to really do it all, but I spent time reading and taking notes on every single book of the Bible. But you got to know how to separate the code from, the parable, the actual book itself and what's going on, to understand that these stories mean something else. They are alluding to something else. There are not actual things that actually happen. And it kills me to see black people just hallelujah and just so phony when it comes to the Bible, knowing they don't really follow it. So I already proven that, one, we established civilizations and kingdoms long before Europeans had monarchies or what have you, that we had knowledge of, math, science, astrology, what have you. We had schools, we had so many systems in place long before European rule. This is already proven. So when the Hebrews are talking about, we being the chosen people, when the Bible is talking about the Jews being the chosen people or what have you. And like I said before, don't get me wrong, the Hebrew Israelites got it right. They just confused about what they're talking about. They got it right as far as the Bible saying that we are chosen. But you got to understand it's more to that and what that really means. One, the people, because it's pertaining to the Jews being in America as slaves, when Deuteronomy 28:68 is talking about going back to Egypt in ships, and all of the imagery and everything that's showing you that America is Egypt or what have you, trying to get you to understand, one, who the Jews really are, which they can't be the Jews we see today. They have to be black people, but trying to get you to understand the metaphor of the whole thing. What it basically is saying, plain and simple, is the people, one, that was brought into America, which, yes, Africans was already in the Americas long before slavery. And we was there when Columbus came. We was there when they basically took over. The Indians were black. That's another story. But there were Africans brought from Africa, from the west side of Africa unto America. But these people were the kings. They were the descendants of the kings, of the royal families of Africa that was enslaved. So when you pay attention to what was happening, one, just think about this. Did you see the pictures? One, when they brought in the slaves, what they bring in the slaves for? They brought the slaves into the colonies to build these buildings, to build, to farm. They didn't understand this stuff. That's what we was doing when we came there. We built America. They didn't know how to do this stuff. We was already masons long before they came up with the word mason. So the castles is there to prove it. So they enslaved the kingdoms, the kings. I always say you could be descendant of one of these kings that was enslaved. We can go back and prove one from the Songhai Empire, 16th century, enslaved, defeated by the Europeans. And enslaved, those people was enslaved. They already had knowledge. So even before that, we came into, and I talked about this in the Moors DVD about when Columbus came over with the Moors, understanding that the Moors already had the knowledge, understood what was going on. But you got to understand during that time as well, you had these African civilizations that was being taken over by the Europeans, the Portuguese namely, who was on terror. But those kingdoms, the people, and those royal families were enslaved, took to America, and forced to build for the colonies. So what the Europeans can see was we had this knowledge. So they eliminated any threat to their power. Had we been left in power in these African kingdoms, we would have challenged their authority. Then, being kings of Africa, the most richest land on the planet, we would be the superpower, period, point blank. They can't control all of Africa, so they're controlling the power structures. And that's basically what they've been doing. You don't just go in and fight an entire country. You go in and you tackle the person at the top, the king, whoever ruling. Either rob them or threaten them or do something to gain access to the rest of the people. And that's basically what they did. So I want you guys to understand, while we see Christianity, we see religion backed up by so much money and power and people in high places, and you see your favorite celebrity, Denzel, and all these people praising God and praising Jesus and everything like that, is all surrounded by this religion. So much entertainment, so many lies, so much power. You got to understand, no matter how big and crazy it may seem, and all this stuff may give an impression of legitimacy, as if this stuff is real, but in reality, it's all bogus. It's bullshit. No matter how big they try to hype it up, you can see that the stuff is not backed by anything, which is why I need all these special effects. It's bullshit. And this is basically what the Europeans do. They're good at it. The Jews, good at it. They're good at telling stories. They're good at giving you movies because they can't do the stuff for real, so they can fake it on TV to get you to believe that, the stuff is possible, it's true, or what have you. This is what they did with history. They try to give themselves a legitimate place in history, as far as them having really a legitimate excuse to be ruling. Because again, who made you king? Who's the Queen Elizabeth? Who is these kings and queens? Who made them kings and queens? Think about it. If we was kings and queens before them, where did their empire come from? They had to have taken ours and assumed the throne. This is what happened. This is what we can prove. So again, you're going to go back through history and it's going to be a line. And everything below that line starts to get a little bit sketchy, but we can piece it together enough now to understand the truth. But their line is clear, but you can't find nothing legitimate to give them claim to the throne other than conquering. And I guess you can say, well, if you take something, it's yours, but morally, it's not right. You can't run on morality and have this whole religious source be throwing people in jail for stealing and killing or what have you, when you got everything you have: robbing, killing, stealing. Now, it's just some people, no matter what you say, how much information you put out there, how much sense you make, they're not going to back away from the Bible. It's just how it is. A lot of people is completely brainwashed, they screwed, and they're not willing to accept any kind of rational understanding that's basically going to go against their understanding of the Bible. So, in doing this video and putting out all this information, everything I have been putting out, I already understand why you're just not going to be able to convince people of the truth. I've been through this. And a lot of people, people want to debate me, want me to talk about this and that. I already been through all this stuff before I even got on YouTube, before I really started getting into this information. I talked with people about this, religious people and people who I knew. And of course, I was met with the same thing. People just don't want to accept the information because then they would have to do something. They would have to change. People just want, they set in their ways. They don't want the world to change. They don't want nothing to change their life. They just want to go about life the way they're going and hopefully make it big someday in some capacity. They don't want things to change. And by the truth coming out changes the world. It changes the world. Not only does it change the world, it could possibly cause a war. It could possibly take a person from a position of power and put them in a lower place. And a lot of people just don't want that. So again, Europeans are fearful of the truth. So anytime you try to speak the truth, you're in danger or you're going to be met with ridicule. And that's just how it is. The truth is a dangerous thing. And it's so messed up that they have established everything that way. So what I want you to understand from this video is that, these races of people, these civilizations that the Bible is talking about were in reality African people. It wasn't, thousands and thousands of years ago. We're talking about, 13th, 14th, 15th century when we still was ruling and we had these lands taken away from us. Europe was taken by at least 1000 AD. From African people, from African rulership, as I talked about in the Moors video. And you got to understand that when you start going back in history, this is what you find. This is where all the true facts lead you. And you can't just read a book and believe everything in the book. You got to do actual research and understand what's going on, what's taking place, what has taken place in history. And a lot of people just not doing that because they want history to fit what they want it to fit. Anything but the truth. And that's basically what you see. And I'm all about the truth and getting it out there. This, cop out called Afrocentric that, people want to throw at you. Oh, you Afrocentric and this and that. Or you militant. It's all to escape away from truth. And you could call people whatever you want to call them. But the truth speaks for itself. It is what it is. The truth is the truth. And that's basically what I put out. If it's not the truth, I'm not going to really put it out there. I'm not going to back it up. But the truth is what we're after. You put little names on it. They want to call you atheist or Afrocentric or militant, whatever people want to say. It's all about the truth. That's basically what I'm about, period. And getting to the bottom of it. If it was some truth that put us in a negative light, the truth is the truth. You got to put it out there. But when you follow history and when you look at what happened, it's clear. You had spiritual African people who tried to help and civilize the world, whose real only problem and flaw was they was too trusting, plain and simple, that they didn't see black and white, they saw human. And you had these powers that be take advantage of that and understanding that they can manipulate these people. And the best way to do it was using spirituality, which we were spiritual people. That's what they used, the weapon. That's the weapon that was used against us and still being used against us. You had so many people basically turn against Africa and turn their backs against everything that African people did for the world and did for so many different civilizations and allow us to basically be taken over by the European powers, by these Aryan powers for whatever reason. And again, as I talked about in Buddhism DVD, as I touched on a little bit in the Moors, and I'm going to keep touching on this situation, as we can see how a lot of these nations are involved and how they basically just come to this whole understanding that black is bad, black is evil, black is wrong. And it's an understanding that, they have that for some reason they don't want to put out the truth about African accomplishments for whatever reason. But the truth is already out there. You can't hide it. The proof is there. And, now you're starting to see a lot more people, coming to the truth and start to embrace the truth more. A lot of people is coming to the knowledge that they are African and that they come from African people and who we really are and what happened to us. And this is what they don't want, which is why we have been seeing over the years so much racism brought up again, so much racial tension going on throughout the world because they understand the world is trying to unite and has been. And they're trying to stop that from happening at all costs, because as soon as we realize that we are the same, we will turn and look and see who the real enemy is, and they don't want that to happen. So my goal is to make that happen. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. Thanks to everybody who's been buying the Moors DVD. Thanks for the support, everybody who's been donating so far and still not doing that good. But you know, we'll get to our goal. But I want to thank you guys for taking time to watch, donate, buy Moore's DVD, and yeah, follow me. That's what I meant to say. Follow me again at The Real Merkabah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I will live stream from Kemet when I get there. If it's a signal, I will live stream straight from the pyramids. I'm gonna try to climb to the top of that thing if I could. But I will live stream from there, from a lot of other places that I'm going to be visiting. So yeah, definitely follow me on there. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. See you guys next video. Thanks for watching.